AI is not going to steal your job. People using AI is going to steal your job. We often think about the things that AI could do, but rather we should be thinking about what AI should do. But I had to learn to say, it shouldn't do that. You shouldn't be automating that. You shouldn't be using AI to do that. It's just getting to know yourself is the most powerful thing you can do.
Today, I interview someone with over 25 years experience at the cutting edge of AI and technology, and he says that the biggest problem businesses face today is a human problem, not a tech problem. My guest today is Ross Barnes. He's a former global chief technology officer who helped scale his agency from 15 people to over 1,500 employees and took their revenue from 80 million annually to over 1 billion per year. Ross has led AI data and digital strategy for some of the world's most recognizable brands. We're talking Toyota, Lexus, EA Sports and British Airways, to name a few. He's been featured on the BBC and Bloomberg, and he's now the founder of the Galahad Group, where they're building AI-powered systems to help organizations to actually use the tools that they keep buying. But here's what I wasn't expecting. When we sat down together, underneath all the tech-heavy business success, Ross is a man who received a late diagnosis of ADHD and autism, and who has now channeled all of this into a mission to make the world easier to navigate for people whose brains work differently. In this conversation, we get into what Ross calls innovation theater and why most AI transformations quietly fail before they really even get a chance to start. We talk about the 4 human values that AI will never be able to replace. We talk about what it actually takes to lead at scale, to hire the right people, and to build a culture that lets people show up as their best selves. And I'd say most importantly, we talk about what happens when you stop pretending to be someone you're not. Ross left me with a lot to think about. I think he'll do the same for you. So let's hop right on into today's interview, Mr. Ross Barnes.
Global CTO turned AI founder. I'm really excited to learn from you today. Why don't you kick us off? Tell everybody just a little bit about who you are.
Thanks, Wayne. Delighted to be here. Thank you so much for having me. As you said, I worked in the corporate world in advertising and marketing for 25 years in technology and digital and data. And I was CTO at an agency within the WPP group. And I saw the advent of artificial intelligence as both a threat and an opportunity to those kind of companies. And also additionally, during my time there, I was diagnosed with ADHD and autism. And that really changed the way that I wanted to think about my professional and personal life. So I left the agency with a lot of sadness, but with a clear idea on what I wanted to do. And it was to use AI to make life better for people in their professional and personal environments. And that's why I built the Galahad Group. And also we can talk about later, Pull Focus.
Yeah, really exciting. Man, after 25 years in corporate, in global tech, making this big shift, did I hear you say that you saw AI coming in as a threat to corporations?
I think a threat and an opportunity. I think there is a lot of truth to the phrase AI is not going to steal your job. People using AI is going to steal your job. And there are lots of organizations who are piecemeal adopting AI, and often their employees are more proficient than the business itself. I do a lot of training of AI for large corporations, AI enablement. And what I see most is there are people, it's fight or flight, isn't it? There are people who have not adopted it because they're scared, but there are people that have hyper adopted it. And I don't think I've, in my 25 years of tech, have ever seen a technology that has such a disparate knowledge spectrum. When I do my training, the feedback I get is either, almost universally, either that was too basic, or that was much, much too complex. There is nothing else. And it's that in itself is happening in businesses. Businesses are not adopting artificial intelligence, and they are going to be left behind, because it is very clear, even when you're talking to your friends down the pub, who is using AI and who isn't, and who is making their lives easier and more effective.
Yeah, absolutely. So where can we tell people to start, right? Let's go two different directions. Let's first focus
Yeah.
on companies and corporations, maybe how they need to begin to adopt the technology. And then I love how you've also started to mention about on our personal side, right? How can AI tech actually help us on our personal side? So people that are still afraid, they're seeing AI as a threat. Where does a company begin to adopt the
Yeah.
tech?
It's a great question. And the problem with a lot of artificial intelligence is it's really innovation theatre. It really shows you the art of the possible. And really, you need to be thinking about the industrialization of it, what it can actually do for you as a business. Start examining the workflows, start examining the processes in your company, and start seeing what can be improved and augmented by using AI. But importantly, do that human first. You're looking to make your staff more effective. And we've built a tool on that Galahad Group website. It's called Ikigai. And if you go there and you upload a workflow or some of your tasks, or indeed even your job description, it will help you decide what is purely human and the things you should be doing or your company should be doing, and what are the things that could be augmented by AI. So if you put your job description in, it will spit out an AI augmented job description with agents that can surround you and make you better and more effective. And that's something I love doing with CEOs of large companies, to show them how they can be better, not just their company.
Love that. So, sorry, go ahead. Even more
And
thought for me.
I was going to say, when on the personal side, you know, there's a Japanese or Chinese proverb, which is the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is now. Just get going, just get starting. You cannot do anything wrong. There is no real risk of you using ChatGPT incorrectly unless you blindly trust it. But start using it. Start thinking about things that, you know, we use it to play and plan games and quizzes with the kids over dinner, and it's just, it can do so much for you. Just go and play.
Just start playing with it. Yeah, it's not too late
Yeah.
to start. Ikigai, right? So it's a Japanese saying, proverb, right? That's where it comes from.
Yeah, exactly. So it is about finding the perfect balance of what you can get paid for, what you love to do, what brings value to society, and what you're good at. But the Ikigai that we have built, or Ikig AI, as we call it, is around humanity and the four values of humanity that AI cannot replicate. And that is heart, where you require empathy or sympathy or understanding of emotion. Hear, where you need to be present, where you need to be with someone, whether you need to present to someone. Hunch, whether you need intuition, whether you need to have experienced something before. And lastly, and what I think is often forgotten, is hunger. It's resilience, it's the ambition to do more, it is the willingness to push through barriers. And when you get all four of those, that is where pure humanity exists. And that is where you do not want AI. You want AI to do the things that doesn't have those H's. And that's how it works.
There's four values of humanity. Wow. Heart, hear, hunch, and hunger. And so
Yeah.
what I'm hearing you say is that first off, we'll go check out this tool, Ikigai, right? And it'll help you to think through this and see the processes in your life and in your business. But it's everything to do with these four pieces of the puzzle is what we should be focusing on more. And then should we be steering into having AI help us in almost every other thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's not, maybe not almost every other, but it's when thinking of things that shouldn't be eliminated. We often think about the things that AI could do, but rather we should be thinking about what AI should do. And, you know, there is those four H's are the enjoyable things of life. You know, they are the things that bring light, and that that is what AI is going to enable us to spend more time doing if we use it correctly.
AI could do versus what AI should do. Yeah, it sounds like you're coming across instances where people or companies are trying to automate the wrong things, or they're trying to plug AI into human situations.
Yes, I mean, when I first started this journey on the platform and in the Galahad Group, some of the conversations I was having, I had to learn that when people said, "Can it do this?" I would say, "Yes, yeah, it can do that." But I had to learn to say, "It shouldn't do that. You shouldn't be automating that. You shouldn't be using AI to do that. You should be using it to do this." And starting to tell people no. And if you use our framework, our diagnostic framework, it will tell you that we will not build artificial intelligence, or our platform will not do that for you. And we turn down business for that because there are better things that it can be doing, and there are better things that you can be doing.
Absolutely. Now, I want to take a couple steps back here. I know that a little bit earlier in your career, you helped to scale an organization pretty dramatically. Am I right that you helped to scale from about 15 employees to over 1,500 people?
Yeah, that's right. And it certainly wasn't. It certainly wasn't just me. Had some very, very accomplished and storied colleagues, but we grew from we grew from when I joined. I was employee number 10, and we then in London, and we scaled to 1,500 across the globe, and that journey was the most intense period of my life over 13 years. I learned a lot about business. I learned a lot about scale, effectiveness, and automation. But I also learned a lot about myself and what was important to me.
I mean, I'm sure you learned so much then about scale, business, automation, yourself. The reason why I bring it up is because, I mean, I'm sure there was a huge human element in this as well, right? So now when we're talking about how AI shouldn't be replacing these four qualities, these values of humanity, right? That's what I'm relating to, like your
Yeah.
expertise of helping to scale an organization to such a huge volume. Like, I'm almost curious, like what are some of your takeaways on the human side, the human element of man scaling an organization to such proportion, so many people.
So the one that I think was the most important, well, they were all important, but hunger. And I think the ability to take risk. And when you're scaling an organization, you have no legacy, which means you can build the organization you want to build. And to do that correctly, you need to deviate from the norm. So you need to take risks. And we and I very much had a saying at my old company, which was ask forgiveness, not permission, because good things get done when good people are allowed to do them. And that is, and if we have not hired good people, then that's our fault. We just need to give them the ability to do the things they think are right, and trust them and back them. And I think that was really important. But also the human element of, God, they say the business feels like a family, but when you're small, it does. And as you grow, trying to keep that culture intact is a big challenge, and one that can only be accomplished by showing up, by being here, and showing heart and humanity to people, because that's how you grow culture.
Ross, this is, I'm delighted. It puts such a big smile on my face because it's interesting to hear a tech guy that we're basing a conversation on AI, but yet we're talking so much about humanity, human nature, connection, and values, and how to scale a company, right? Even this ask for forgiveness, not permission values.
let me try and break that down without getting too into like therapy speak. I think as a late diagnosed autistic person, I have I have incredible interest in technology and things and making things work and breaking things, and that's what I'm good at. But also, I had to work really hard to understand and put together and fix people because I don't quite understand them as well naturally. So I've had to build an internal language about how I build relationships, how I work with people, how I'm very intentional with my language. And I think hopefully that has led to me being really valuing that as a skill that I've built because it is not inherent in the way that my brain works. So that's why it's so important to me.
Wow. And so, do you think I'm excited here to shift directions a little bit, right? Because you
Please.
mentioned it early on, you mentioned it now again around the fact that you're focused so heavily on understanding people and how to connect with people through your late diagnosis as neurodivergent, as having ADHD and autism.
Yeah.
And so, let's pivot. Tell us a little bit about your organization, your company, and how you're helping to coach neurodivergent leaders. What's going on there?
Yes. So I'm a qualified ADHD coach. So I help leaders build frameworks, well, and individuals build frameworks to make their lives easier. And I have a platform called Pull Focus, which uses AI to try and build, in a similar way to Galahad, to build agents and what I call cognitive scaffolding, the things that allows you, either as an individual or a neurodivergent individual, do the things that you're best at, and helps you with the things that cause, and I mean this, cause you mental anguish. So I build frameworks, catered to individuals to help them remember to perform tasks or to outsource tasks or to find ways to communicate with their partners and colleagues in ways that articulate really how they're feeling and yeah, build better communication frameworks. And the best thing about it is when I'm talking to someone who is neurodivergent and offering them advice, it is almost like offering myself advice. Because one thing about neurodiversity, and again, this is just for me. Everyone is different. ADHD and autism, there is a lot of negative self-talk. You don't talk to yourself very kindly because you feel different, and the world doesn't speak to you kindly. But speaking to someone else kindly can feel like it feels good internally. So I love doing it, and and my daughter is neurodivergent as well, so it's great to be able to help her too.
That's wonderful. I've heard sayings or theory that's like the oftentimes the best way to help yourself, whether it's to be happier or to reach success, is through helping others. And it's kind of what I'm hearing here also.
Completely, yeah. And and that is a professional thing and a personal thing. If my platform or my tools can make your professional day better, that's good. I feel great about that. And if it can make your personal day better, I feel great about that. Because if you're a better person, you're going to be better for and to me. It's a yeah, it's a truism, Wayne. It's an absolute truism.
Yeah. No, it's fortunate that I think today in 2026, more and more people are becoming aware of what it means to be neurodivergent, right? And that it doesn't mean at all that there's anything wrong with you. It's just that you're thinking kind of differently. Where can people start to look inwards to see, okay, maybe they are this type of classification, and then what can they do differently from what normal society sort of preaches and teaches?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Well, I've got some semi-diagnostic tools on the Pull Focus website, which they can use. They're not official, but they can give you an idea and they can give you some help and some coaching and but I think when you realize, especially if you're a late diagnosis, that you were different all along, then you go through what's called, or in ADHD, it's called ADHD grief, where you start to see the things that either went wrong or didn't happen or failed because you were different. And it's a really hard part of finding out you are diagnosed, of getting diagnosed. But it's interesting. It's interesting when you said, "What should people do differently?" And you know, what I want to build is where people don't have to do anything differently. People can be who they are and what they are, but they have. It's not an excuse. People have to understand that a neurodiverse person has to understand they can't just be openly you know openly defiant to society, because everybody is adapting to society. They just have to do it a bit more, or a lot more, sorry. But it's just getting to know yourself is the most powerful thing you can do.
Getting to know yourself is the most powerful thing you can do. I love that. And this, how you stated as well, is that there isn't anything different that we should do, right? It's realizing just who we are, how we perceive the world, and then doing what's best for us, for ourselves, while also, as you say, not being totally defiant to the
Yeah,
world, right? To
exactly.
society. So, if you don't mind, walk me through a little bit of this moment when you got diagnosed. Like, what led up to it? Because I was curious. It's like, how is your life even different from before officially being diagnosed to now? Because it sounds like you went through I want to say a transition period, and you're maybe different afterwards.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I was working very hard, traveling a lot, away from my family a lot, and I was getting very ill. And I'm asthmatic, and since I've been diagnosed, and I have not had an asthma attack. I don't know why that is, but before I used to get very stressed and have asthma attacks that would almost that before Christmas in 2022, I think, it landed me up in hospital, nearly, you know, very bad. And then I started to have therapy, and my therapist said, "Have you ever considered getting diagnosed for ADHD?" And I did, and I was, and it's a very hard period. And what I want to do with Poor Focus is I want to catch people then, because what happens is you then unmask, you then stop being the person that society has seen of you for 45 years, and you start becoming almost naked, no mask anymore. And that can be quite traumatic for people who know you, people who work with you. And what I want to do is catch people and make sure that doesn't happen. But that led, to me, my mission to make people's lives easier and better. And I'm happier and healthier than I've ever been. My relationships are stronger, more bi-directional, and more fulfilling, because I, you know, I go in without getting too preachy. I go in with an open heart and really want to understand the other person.
Do you think you're now, you said going in with an open heart or wanting to understand the person? It sounds to me almost like previously you were withdrawn or, I don't know, judging yourself, the situation, other people more versus now that you are understanding yourself even better.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think, at the top of a corporate organization, you naturally think you have all the answers, which means some conversations you don't go in with an open heart, and you go in and you think, yes, I know the answer to this. But I think, interestingly, in the age of I think leaders don't need to have answers. They need to have questions. They need to be prompting not only their AI, but their colleagues. It's not about telling your colleagues what is right. It's about finding out what the right question is to ask your organization. And AI enables us to do that. And that's what, yeah, we do at Galahad.
Wow. Wow. Nice. Urging leaders, especially now in the age of AI, to focus more on asking questions, right? What are some steps maybe that leaders that are listening can take to start to ask better questions, the correct questions? Because it sounds like they're needing to change their entire communication styles.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. It's almost like undercover boss. You've got to understand what your colleagues are doing. You don't have to be a craft expert, but you have to understand what is going on in the boiler room. And I think I'm a craft technical expert. That's where I've come from. Very techy, very geeky developer, and often I saw talented colleagues who knew everything about the business either get over promoted and crash out because they weren't managers, or not get promoted or not progress because they were too geeky or they spoke too technically or they made things too complicated. And it's like, well, but some things are complicated. And just because you don't want to understand, or you, that's, you know, we need to get complicated. So it's about now understanding the complex can be made much easier by judicious use of artificial intelligence for training, for example. There is no excuse for not ignorant. There is no excuse for not understanding, and that is, I think something that leaders need to adopt.
Yeah, yeah. There's not an excuse for not understanding, right? All endless knowledge is at our fingertips. We just have to be willing to learn, take the time, and with that comes failing, right? Falling down on your face, like, but picking yourself up, wiping yourself down, and continuing to move forward and keep learning, keep moving forward, huh?
It's the best quote of from any film is Rocky Balboa. All you can do when you get hit is stand up and keep moving forward. I butchered the quote, but that's it. And that is hunger. That is the H of hunger. Curiosity, questing. Because as you said, all knowledge exists now. We are not a knowledge based society anymore. We are a hunger, hear, heart, and hunch society.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. Hunger here, right now, heart and hunch society. Ross, you mentioned curiosity also. I've asked a handful of individuals that I've interviewed here what took them from a lot of times a corporate career to an entrepreneur in a totally different industry. And curiosity is the theme that sparks it over and over and over again. And so I'm finding some of the most successful in multiple facets of life. I'm not just talking financial or business success, are really boiling it down to be more curious.
Completely. I My curiosity, I think now it comes from a very good place, but before it came from a very unhealthy place before I was diagnosed. I hated not knowing anything. If I was in a meeting room and someone said something I didn't know, I hated it, and it would eat me up. So and then I would go either at school, I would go home and read a book about it, or later on I would Google it, and more recently, you know, uh, I'd go on Claude and learn about it, because that fear of being left behind, while not a engine, is something that does drive me, but it's now comes from a place of wanting to understand, and I find myself now much more just listening, and I'm trying to just understand things I don't understand by yeah, just listening. And often I'll be the quietest person in the room, but I often think when I'm in a room, that's probably the person I want to hear from.
Was there a shift that happened, and how did you learn to listen more? Learn to listen better. That's now where you can gain knowledge from versus having to, I guess, aggressively go out and search and read.
Yeah, how did I learn? I think when I progressed from a craft expert to a higher, rung, a political rung of the corporate ladder, I noticed a shift in that lots of people spoke because they wanted to say something. And it wasn't to add value. It wasn't necessarily even to show expertise or to drive a project forward. It was so people knew that they were in the room. And I noticed that as a behavior that I didn't see any value in. So I listened, and I had an incredible boss, my mentor, who would always, at the end of every meeting, would say, "Okay, now I'd like to hear what Ross has got to say," and then would then give me space to talk because I would generally, stay back. And and I think previously now, I'm much more comfortable with that because I think also earlier in my career, people thought that I was aloof and withdrawn. But now I'm very open in saying, look, I'll contribute where necessary. If I'm not contributing, it's because everything's going well. And I think being open about that's how I operate allows other people to be open about how they operate as well.
Being open about expressing this is how I operate, right? Then allows others to also be more open, operate what's best for them.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we all want. Right? We want in
Yeah.
any room we're in, whether it's social or professional, we want everyone to be able to show up in the best as the best of them because that's who we want in the room. But yet we create
100%.
we create conditions that don't allow that to happen, which is madness.
It is absolutely madness. A piece that I noted down earlier that I just want to mention again is that the company, I'm going to say the word ethos right now, that you created was around ask for forgiveness instead of permission. I think that's only doable if you're allowing people, you're supporting people to be their best selves, right? Steer into who they are, right? We're hiring and training properly, and then letting go, right? Do what you do best. Go. Better to ask for forgiveness and not for permission.
Right. Right. And my hiring strategy always used to be about hiring spiky people that were really good at certain things. Just and look for excellence, not good. But having excellence, well, I mean, it's like Dungeons and Dragons. We've only got a certain amount of attribute points to spend. When you have excellence in some things, you sometimes have drawbacks. But what you do is you build things around. You partner people with people who fill in their drawbacks. You don't want a team full of fives. You want tens in the areas where it's important. So complementing styles and knowledge and strategy is something I've always liked to do. So I've worked with some incredibly amazing people who would be amazing in meetings and strategy, but would probably be wearing old socks. You know, we're not very organized, but that doesn't matter. We can find a way to help them be organized.
Yeah. What wonderful. It sounds like you're always talking there. Some people might be familiar with Clifton Strengths or Strengths Finder. Are you familiar with that, Ross?
No, I'm not actually, Wayne. Please tell me about it.
So it's pretty much the concept, and it's a whole test that you can go through, similar to almost like they call it a personality test. That's going to outline what your greatest strengths are. First, it gives you your top three, and then you can expand a little bit more to your top five or top 10. But they urge individuals to double down on their strengths. Instead of thinking, I'm not that great at organizational skills, I need to get better at that, right? Or it's like, I'm not the best public speaker, I should improve there. Why? It's instead, let's find out what you're naturally good at, what you're passionate about, what are your strengths, double down, and then we'll bring in other people that your weaknesses are actually their strengths.
Right, and that ties into everything we've been talking about around AI, right? You should do the same approach with AI. Get AI to support you on the things you're not good at, and then just and the things that you're naturally good at, you'll probably find they're things you really like doing.
Yeah.
So it's easier to double down. It causes you less distress, and the impacts are better. Sounds like I need to build the Clifton strengths into my Ikigai model.
Yeah, I think that'd probably be a good idea. Well, Ross, with Galahad, right? Tell us what's next, right? What a little bit more what you guys are currently doing and where's the company headed?
So we are we've got a number of different arms of Galahad. We're the Galahad Group. We've got the Ikigai diagnostic that I think I talked about earlier, but that's on our website where you can put in your job description and tasks. But then what we do for you after you've done that diagnostic is we start building you agents and AI and workflow. And we start what we call AI enablement, which is where one of our consultants will come into your business, and rather than being a consultant that leaves you with a 70-page deck that does nothing, they will actually sit down with your practitioners and start to build and help them use AI, which is what I think really helps move the needle on processes. And we've also got a number of different platforms that we're building around automation and marketing, and helping companies protect their unique AI, their unique IP in a shadow AI world, which is quite a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm sure. So its majority is, you have standalone tools that individuals can go and use, but a big piece of this puzzle is going into organizations, finding out what systems of theirs can be improved, can be utilized better with AI, and then not just telling them about it, but then walking them through the enablement and training process. I saw a quote from yours, I believe, online that said something along the lines of technology doesn't solve problems, adoption does.
Right, exactly. And that is the biggest failure of most technology products, not just AI, is that people don't use them. People don't use them in the way that they think would benefit them. So we build and adapt platforms to make sure that people do use them. And we do lots of studies on how it helps. And one of the first things for artificial intelligence properly is we are not trying to replace you. This is not what it's about. This is about making you better, doubling down on your Clifton strengths, and making your work just much more fulfilling and fun. And when you approach AI in that way, people really do get on board.
That's wonderful. Galahad Group. And then when it comes to pull focus, right? You're coaching with neurodivergent leaders. What does the future look like for pull focus?
I think the future for Pull Focus is about it's about helping people build, as I said, that cognitive scaffolding. The world has been built around bureaucracy and making things difficult, especially for neurodiverse people. What I want Pull Focus to do is to make the world easier for neurodiverse people, but ultimately easier for everyone. So there are guides and tools on the website that can help you navigate certain government bureaucratical processes with ease, that can help you with the things you are supposed to say, aren't supposed to say, and just helps you build artificial intelligence that can support you in your day to day.
Building artificial intelligence to support you. That's much more on that personal side,
Yeah,
right? Human side also, which
human
is
side.
amazing. Yeah. Ross, well, thank you so much for everything that you do. It's greatly appreciated. And it seems like you're so mission driven actually. And so along the theme of the show, right? I always just like to end with asking people around legacy. And so for you, Ross, what does legacy even mean? And what's the legacy you're trying to leave on this world?
I think the legacy I want to leave is that I want neurodivergent individuals to be able to succeed in life and in business, and to have systems that can help everybody in the way that they need to be helped. And the true thing about that is my daughter to be able to be successful. And what I'm building in terms of the Galahad professional side and the Pull Focus personal side will enable in 15 years, a 10-year-old Ottilie, my daughter, to enter her personal and professional world without fear, shame, or judgment.
Wonderful. Ross, thank you so much for what you're doing for everybody, what you're doing for Audley, what you're doing for this world. It's greatly appreciated. And thank you for coming on and sharing with us today.
Thank you, Wayne. Really enjoyed it.
And that's a wrap. Thank you, Ross, for sharing with us today. Thank you all for listening in. If you haven't done so yet, please take a quick moment and leave us a review right here, wherever you're listening, because it really helps us to grow the show and to get this message out. What really struck me most about this conversation with Ross today wasn't the AI strategy, as good as it was the through line underneath it. A man who spent decades being one of the most technically capable people in the room, but who was quietly struggling to understand the people around him, understand himself, and who then discovered that the very thing that made him different was actually what made him exceptional, and who is now building tools to make sure the next generation doesn't have to go through what he went through. Ross is working every day, not building for a billion-dollar exit. He's building so that his daughter, who is also neurodivergent, can walk into her professional and personal world without fear, shame, or judgment. That's a real legacy worth leaving. A few things that I want you to take away from today. The 4 H's: heart, hear, hunch, and hunger. Those are the 4 things Ross mentioned that AI cannot replace. And according to him, they're also the things that make life worth living. Ross says that technology doesn't solve problems, adoption and implementation does. If your company is buying tools that nobody is using, that's not an AI problem, it's a leadership problem. And then finally, getting to know yourself is the most powerful thing that you can do. Whether that's through a diagnosis, through therapy, through asking better questions, or just by learning to sit in a room and listen, work to know yourself. That's where everything else starts. You can find Ross and everything he's building at the links below. If you're leading a team through an AI transformation, check out the Galahad Group and the Ikigai diagnostic tool. If any part of Ross's neurodivergent story resonated with you personally, Pull Focus is worth exploring. If this episode added value to your journey, please leave us a review right now and then come join our community at journeytolegacy.org. Until next time, my name's Wayne Veldsman, and thanks for listening to Journey to Legacy.